Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to our 281st weekly webcast. Now, if this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way this call works is this is an AMA, like you see on Reddit. You can ask me anything. You can ask me business questions, personal questions, career questions, investing questions. And my humble hope and purpose for this weekly call is to help you take your career, et cetera, to the next level. So without further ado, let's begin. So I'm currently in Toronto, Mississauga to be exact, just outside of Toronto, spending time with my parents. Thank you everybody for the nice wishes, the flowers, etc. That you sent me. My little sister Katie passed away sadly from lupus. The funeral was last week on Wednesday. I'm just staying here helping out with Katie's husband and the kids and my parents and everything. We have strong faith in our family, so we know she's in heaven. And Katie, we miss you so much. Okay. All right. Let me get to your questions. Okay. So first up, animals. Good to see you, wrote. Happy to see you back. Here are my questions. Sure. If I'm renting a home and it leaves you with enough cash to invest and make a better return, why do I have to buy a home and lock in the funds there? Yeah, I know what you're saying. Okay. So you're basically saying I want to rent instead because I want to invest in the stock market and make more money that way. So when it comes to investing in real estate, and I have a real estate elective coming out this fall exclusively for my MBA degree students. And what I'll do actually in answering this question is I'll show you the template I'm be providing during that elective. So let me go over here and show it to you. Here it is. Okay, great. So when you invest in real estate, there's 5 big reasons to do so. And this is called ideal, as you can see here, IDAL. And so ideal stands for I for income. You get income from the property you buy if you're renting it out to others. D stands for depreciation. And you can depreciate your property so you can pay a lot less taxes every year. Now, the way it works with depreciating a rental property that you own is you can depreciate anything except for the land over 27 and a half years, so you can pay a lot less in taxes. E for ideal here, E stands for equity. And what that means is as you rent out this property, you're getting monthly payments, of course, you make money that way, which covers the mortgage, but you're also getting appreciation as a house will go up in price in the long run. Then you've got the last one. I get them all. Equity is your ownership. Sorry, appreciation is the next one. A, which I kind of covered, goes up in value. Lastly, leverage. And this one is key. If you put down 20% on a house that doubles in price, you didn't just make 100%. You made way, way more than that because you only bought 1/5 of it. Now, we don't want to use more leverage than 20%. You want to put 20% down so that you can get a loan for 80%. You can make a fortune this way. Now, last thing I'll say on this topic is that in this complete real estate course, which is coming out this fall, which is going to be exclusive to my MBA students, only on my website, there's 4 tracks. There's the primary residence lessons and exercise track where I teach you what kind of house or apartment to buy if you're a first-time buyer. Then there's the RIR, which is the residential investment rental lessons and exercise track, which means you own a home and you either want to rent a room in your house to Airbnb to pay off your mortgage, or you own a home and you want to buy a rental property. Then there's what's called the CIR track, which is commercial investment rental lessons, where you buy strip malls and other commercial buildings, or the all lessons and exercise track. Now, in this course, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you tons of questions. You're going to enter in a lot of details. Okay. And then what's going to be created for you is a very comprehensive 50-page business plan. And I don't want you to buy any real estate until completing a business plan. And there's a 1-page executive summary you can show your mortgage broker, real estate agents, lawyers, etc. Okay. And I teach you how to search for a property, how the mortgage works exactly. And I teach you how to create an income statement and cash flow statement for your house or rental, a balance sheet, every formula you can think of, and much, much more. So I'm really excited about this. Again, that comes out this fall, which is going to be exclusive to my MBA degree program students. And also, a big shout out to Udemy for sending beautiful flowers as well. Thank you. Okay. Now, if there's any audio or video problems, let me know because I just set this up just now, and I'll show you the setup as well. So what I did was I'm in my parents' house. Sorry for the mess here, but it's similar to my studio back home, and I recommend everybody get a similar setup at home for when you're working. So I've got a treadmill underneath, which cost I think it was 150 bucks. Got it on Amazon.ca. Then I got a desk, a stand-up desk that goes up and down. Costs about 200 bucks as well. It's a great investment. And you'll see I have stilts at the bottom here as well, just to prop it up a little bit more so it doesn't hurt my posture when I type. I'm using my laptop, this camera up here, my iPad, and then this is my parents' television right here that I connected with HDMI. You can see the CN Tower just outside the window there. But if anybody has questions about setup, etc., when it comes to doing Zoom calls, let me know. I had a great student of mine from Minnesota, and she told me last year that having a great Zoom setup can do more for your career than a great Italian soup can do for your career. And I believe that. Okay. All right. Next question is, how can you give feedback to somebody who is socially in a higher position, like a teacher, boss, etc.? Let's say he never asked for it. Let's say that you will benefit if he follows the advice. Yeah. So whenever you give feedback to somebody that you're working for or works for you always do it in private. Great managers will always praise in public and criticize in private. It's a little bit trickier with your boss or your teacher. I wouldn't do it within the first 6 months of your relationship with them, maybe after 1 or 2 years. And you can bring it up to them just over a coffee meeting and say, I really enjoy working with you. The team is great. I think we can accomplish a lot more. Can I humbly give you some positive feedback and what I think about the team? Then you talk about all the positive stuff. And then you say, well, another way that we could potentially accomplish much, much more is if we were to do this. And when you say we, this is when you kind of criticize them. Okay. Hopefully that helps. And a lot of companies have 360-degree review processes where your assistant will review you, etc. If you work at a company right now and you don't have a 360-degree confidential review process on an annual basis, please put it into place. Okay. Next up, question is, what is the section between the Russell 3000 and the S&P 500? Are there any other significant U.S. companies that one can consider investing in? Are they in the United States in the index? Yeah, yeah. So basically the way it works is there's something called the Russell 2000 index, for those you're not familiar with it. And the ticker on that is IWM. And that represents 2,000 smaller cap companies in the United States. Now, there's also the Dow Jones Industrials, which is 30 companies, the 30 biggest companies that represent the US. The Dow has a high dividend yield because they're bigger companies. The Russell has a very low dividend yield because a lot of them are just startup companies. But my favorite index to invest in is called the VOO, ticker VOO, and that represents the S&P 500. Now, usually smaller cap indexes go up more than larger cap indexes when we're in a bull market, which we're in right now. But this year it's a bit different because the Russell does not have as many technology companies as the S&P 500 does. And so as a result, the Russell is only up 13% this year. The bottom line is, though, whenever you want to invest in ETFs, you can always go to etfdb.com, which is a free website that will show you 5,000 ETFs you can invest in based on geography, sector, etc. Now, when you do this, and never invest in mutual funds because mutual funds are a scam, they charge you an arm and a leg for fees. ETFs charge minimal fees, but don't invest in an ETF if the fee is above 0.5%, meaning for every 100 bucks you put into it, I don't want you to pay more than 50 cents in annual fees. Yeah. Check out etfdb.com for more details. That's etfdatabase.com. I can go there with you if you want me to. Okay. All right. Next up, question is, what is a leveraged buyout? Is it dangerous for investors? And how can they protect themselves? I don't think it's dangerous. It's a positive thing. I'll explain why. If a company is not being run well, what happens is, and it's publicly traded, what happens is a private equity firm like KKR, for example, might come in and buy the entire company. And when one company buys another company that's publicly traded, Usually the going rate, the premium is 30%. So it's not a risk for you at all. And what happens with leverage buyout is a company that is extremely undervalued and being mismanaged. Quite often, what will happen is a firm like KKR or Elliott or Vista, what they'll do is they will buy all the outstanding shares of the company using debt or whatever proceeds they have in their funds. Then they'll take it private. They'll make changes to it, right? They'll restructure it. They'll parachute in a new CEO, new C-level executive management team. Their network is great. Then in order to harvest their investment for their investors and so they can make money themselves, what they often do is they take it public again. And this happens a lot in the software companies, in the software industry, with companies like Citrix, which was a very large, I think it was a $20 billion leverage buyout or private equity deal back in 2022. It happened also with CompuWare, which I used to call CompuScare, BMC, etc. Yeah. And if you want to learn more about leverage buyouts, I recommend reading the book Barbarians at the Gate, which was published back in the late 80s. It's about KKR's involvement with a very large leverage buyout in the company called Nabisco, which is the National Biscuit Company. If you want to watch a movie to learn more about this, you can watch a movie called Other People's Money with Danny DeVito. It's an oldie but a goodie. Okay. All right. Next question is, what debt to equity ratio is considered high? Yeah. So I would say anything above 2 can be dangerous. The sweet spot is between 1 and 1.5 times. And whenever you see a ratio or a formula, what I always want you to do is make the denominator 1. So in the case of debt to equity, what that means is for every $1 in equity on the denominator, how many dollars or pennies do you have in debt on the numerator? Yeah. Okay. Next question is, how do I overcome the initial fear of videotaping myself? Yeah. You got to tell yourself you just don't care, right? And you'll go a lot farther in life if you tell yourself that too, that you don't care what people think of you. You know, and Les Brown, a great motivational speaker, once said, someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. So you got to tell yourself, I just don't care. It works, I promise you. Yeah. And your homework, everybody's homework for today is to get a piece of paper and a pen and write this down. I don't care what people think of X. And X, you fill in the blank. Do that 10 times. I don't care what people think of my chosen profession as a teacher. I don't care what people think of my very aerodynamic nose, which is great for when I'm skiing because I'm fast at it. I don't care what people think of who I am, my ethnic background, whatever. I just don't care. I'm going to be me. And people love you for who you are. So do that exercise. I don't care what people think of X. Do it 10 times. It's a subtle art of not giving a darn, but I promise you it'll help you tremendously. Yeah. Okay. And you got to look. So any YouTubers you follow, like me, I'm small, whatever, or Marquise Brownlee, who's massive, or Gary Vaynerchuk, who's massive. You can always go back and look at their initial videos. The audio video quality and the content quality was awful compared to what they produce now, but you got to start sometime. And I recommend everybody on this call to please start creating YouTube content. You have 5 years to do it, otherwise you miss the boat. And I'll explain why. In about 5 years, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be AI avatars that are corporate owned that will replace a lot of online teachers, also replace a lot of celebrities, etc. And so that is when AGI, meaning artificial general intelligence, will become a reality. So you got 5 years. So please start putting your flag in the ground and establish a brand of you. Yeah. And don't worry if you don't know what to talk about on your YouTubes or TikToks, etc. Talk about a bunch of things and the market will slowly guide you. For example, with me, I thought when I started making content, courses, etc., I thought all people cared about was learning about finance stuff for me. But I got a lot of comments from people saying, I like the personal growth stuff as well. So the market will guide you. I want you to publish 1 video per week and never give up. Most people will give up after a couple of weeks or a couple of months. It's a marathon, not a sprint. The longer the view, the wiser the intention. Okay, and Andre, thank you so much for that donation there. That'll go directly to Project Magoo. And so we finished building our first school in Rwanda last year. This October, I'm going to Kenya to build a school, which is a 6-hour drive from the Nairobi airport. It's a school for girls in honor of Marin Karos, who's one of my amazing students, in honor of Marin Karos' mother. And it's to be called Aliyah Karos School for Girls. And Marin, if you're on the call, I'm sure that your mother, Aliyah, and my sister, Katie, are hanging out right now and having a good laugh. Okay. All right. Next up, we've got Ray, who wrote, "Welcome back. I missed you and generated a lot of questions. Here are some of them, and I missed you all more. And the way that you know you found your passion in life is if you go on vacation or you're away from work for a while and you can't wait to get back to your passion, so to speak." Yeah. Okay. First question is, why is Warren Buffett still holding Coca Cola? Yeah, he's owned it since the 80s. Why doesn't he sell? Is it still bringing high return? Is it because he didn't pay the taxes? Yeah, a couple of reasons. So number one, he's held Coca-Cola since the 80s. He said he's never selling it. And Coca-Cola is not just a company that makes cola products. Only 28% of the company's revenue is from Coke, Diet Coke, etc. The rest of it is from beverages, nutritional drinks, etc. And the great thing about Coca-Cola is that they have distribution channels all over the world. And so if Coca-Cola were to do an acquisition by a company that looks expensive, it's immediately accretive for them, meaning it's profitable for them because they have distribution channels all over the world. In terms of the dividend yield, it was better before. Now it's probably around 2%. The ticker is KO. And then lastly on taxes, yes, Warren Buffett would have to pay a ton in taxes if he were to sell it. Yeah, it always makes sense to be a long-term investor with every asset class because you pay less in taxes when you sell it. Yeah. And I can go into that in more detail if you want me to. Real estate's the best investment you can make, though, because of the tax savings, and you're not wasting money on rent. Okay, next question is, what steps would you follow if you want to become a coach for managers and you already have been a CEO of 3 companies? Yeah. So what I would do is this. I'd reach out to venture capital firms and ask them if you can be what's called an EIR. And that's an unpaid role called executive in residence. And that way you can get a little bit of credibility or even more credibility by saying you're aligned with a venture capital firm. And you'll give advice to these companies. Now, when you work in venture capital, don't ever, like everybody in this call, don't go into VC unless you've started a couple companies. Because if you go into VC and you've started companies, you're more likely to be able to win deals, and CEOs that you invest in will select you to sit on their board because you can give them advice based on your past work experiences. Last thing I'll say in this, Ray, is what I recommend that you also do is start writing on LinkedIn 1 article per week on advice for CEOs and never stop doing that. And then after doing that for 2 years, you'll have just over 100 articles you can put together in a book and self-publish. I can give you the template for that right now if you want to. And it's kind of like the Rodin sculpture. I think, therefore I am. If you opine, give your opinion a lot on LinkedIn and other social media platforms, eventually the media will reach out to you. And when potential CEOs want to hire you for your consulting business, they'll see that you have social proof as well. Yeah. And if you want, I can teach you everything about what I do. I advise a lot of CEOs, a lot of big companies. And if you can do so by setting up a call with me right here, I'm happy to walk you through it. Okay. So go to my website, which is harounmba.com. In the bottom right-hand corner, I'm covering up this link here. But you click on that button and you can set up a Zoom call with me as well. There's only a few times left here, but next month I think I'm wide open. Yeah. Okay. And that goes for anybody that wants to buy any of my MBA products. Feel free to set up a Zoom call with me. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Ray wrote, I have too many interests. All good. It's difficult to choose among them. So I create a consistent line in my LinkedIn and posts. Should I position myself as a project manager, communications expert, manager, HR, etc.? It depends what you want your client to be looking for on LinkedIn. If you're looking to be a CEO coach, then what I would say is CEO coach and then draw a line, a vertical line. and then write down business development line, sales line, HR line, operations. And that way, from a search engine optimization perspective, that's the most searched field in all of LinkedIn. Number one is your title. Number two is your about section. That's how we say it in Canada. But from an SEO perspective, people will find you as well. Yeah. Okay. And set up a call with me. I'll help you out. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up, hey, Connie. Connie wrote, hey, Chris, hope you're having a beautiful day. I am. Thank you. It's a gorgeous day here in Toronto, nice and hot. Unlike the Bay Area, where who is it again? I think Mark Twain had a great quote. He said, "The coldest winter he ever spent was the summer in San Francisco." So Connie's question is, can you please share the organic eye supplement? Thank you. I really benefited from the walking pad. Oh, great. And the standing desk suggestion you provided. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In terms of the product, so what I did was I had my DNA sequence years ago. And then I found out that there's a high degree of probability that I will get something called AMD, which means my eyesight will go down in my 60s. And my grandfather had it as well. And he's up there with Katie, um, chilling out, watching and having a laugh. But I will get that later in life. So I went to my doctor and had my eyes checked. And my eyes are fine. But my doctor told me to get this relatively benign organic zinc substance. Now I'm going to show it to you, but I want you to talk to your doctor first, please. Okay, so let me go over here to Amazon. That's right, I'm in Canada.com and my order history. And let me do a search for zinc. Here it is here. Okay. So this is the product right here. If you want, you can pause this video and take a screen print. The one I used to buy is out of stock. This is the one I use right now. Yeah. Let me see. Actually, I think there might be another one that I use. Give me 1 second. I think that might be the one, but talk to your doctor first. There's got to be zinc involved. While we're talking about eyesight, etc. Another thing I recommend doing for everybody in this call, in order to get better sleep at night, is if you're going to use your iPhone, iPad, computer, whatever, gaming desktop or laptop, make sure that you wear glasses that block out blue light. Okay, and you can buy them on Amazon for $10 a pair. Okay, blue light blockers. And I went to Stanford University for a sleep study. And they helped me out with this as well. This is scientifically proven to help you sleep better, to get more deep sleep as opposed to only REM. And that will keep you refreshed and will keep your cognitive abilities sharp so you speak gooder and act gooder and stuff as well. While we're on the topic of eyes, actually, let me show you two more things I do when preparing for Zoom calls. Okay, so one thing I do is this. So I use eye drops as well. It's called Lumify, Lumify. And I put these in my eyes before I go live so my eyes appear whiter, right? They're a little bloodshot sometimes. Do that before interviews and presentations as well. The last thing I'll show you when it comes to eyes is something else I put in my eyes before I go live. What I do is there's something called Peter Thomas Roth, and it'll get rid of bags under your eyes, right? I still have them now, I'm tired, and the lighting's not ideal here. But what you do is you take a little bit of this stuff and then you put it under your eyes. You wait 5 minutes for it to dry, and it will get rid of bags if you didn't get much sleep. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Majed wrote, "Hi Chris, hope all is well. Kindly note that I might ask my questions in two comments. Sure. Number one, what do you think about M&A as a field? I'm a level 3 candidate for the CFA, and I work in investment banking, and I want to apply M&A. Yeah. So M&A is part of investment banking. The other main part when it comes to equities is doing IPOs. If you're going to do it, I would do it younger in your career before you start a family. And the reason I say that is, my son Andrew wants to go into investment banking, and he just met with the head of investment banking at Goldman Sachs. He's networking like crazy. But what I explained to my son Andrew is that you're going to work for 2 to 4 years, extremely long hours. It's not glamorous. Will you make more than your friends? Yes. Will you make more than your friends do per hour? No. Your health will suffer. It's very stressful as well. And a lot of it is administrative for the entry level positions, meaning updating Excel documents, PowerPoint documents, etc. Don't do it if you want to start a family. Get it out of the way and then move on after that. And the great thing about starting a job in investment banking is that it's an origination job, meaning you're making the product, be it an M&A product or an IPO product. And if you hate doing that, because you understand how to make the product, what you can do is you can move on to sell the product, invest in the product, not trade, etc. The same thing with other sectors. If you're younger and you don't know what to do yet, business wise, but you don't want to do investment banking, what you can do is you can go into consulting. It's hard as well, like banking, you travel a lot, but you're creating corporate strategy. If you hate it, that's okay because you know how to make the product. And then you can move on to operate the product, manage the product, sell the product, etc. The last thing I'll say about that is that if you think you're interested in tech but you're not sure, become a programmer or developer. And if you hate programming and developing, that's okay. You understand how to originate and make the product. You can always move on to sell the product, manage the product, start your own company regarding that product, etc. Yeah. Okay. Question about Python. Since AI is taking over uh, and can almost write any code, you think it's going to be relevant in 5 years? Meaning Python. Oh yeah, absolutely. Python will. But the CEO of and founder of Nvidia, what he said recently was he doesn't recommend that students study computer science. Don't go into computer science anymore, is what he said. And the reason he said this is because within 5 years or so, to your point, AI is going to be able to do all of this for us. And his name is Jensen Huang. And the reason Jensen said this is because why would you want to do something that AI is going to replace? And so he recommends studying the liberal arts. And Steve Jobs used to always say that Apple is at the intersection of technology and the liberal arts. And studying liberal arts is actually a good thing because it helps you to become creative and think differently, etc. Jensen also said that he thinks the United States is going to surpass many other countries when it comes to education in the next 5 to 10 years because in the United States, quite often, when you start undergrad, you study liberal arts at first, and then you're allowed to choose your major after 2 and sometimes 3 years. Other universities around the world are more practical. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up, what are some essential soft and hard skills in finance that can help me elevate my career? Yeah. So when it comes to the hard skills, you really have to understand how to build an income statement and a balance sheet and how to forecast financial statements as well. So in my MBA degree program, um, I have this is one of the many templates I provide you with. We do qualitative analysis on companies. Okay. We do quantitative and then financial. And the most important hard skill you can have when it comes to finance is understanding how to forecast revenue and income statement, a balance sheet, and then value companies using various methodologies, etc. So these are the most important hard skills in finance that you need. And I think everybody should study finance and accounting because finance and accounting they're not intuitive. It's like a language. It's like learning a different language. Yeah. Most other things in business are intuitive. Yeah. In terms of soft skills that can help you elevate your career, I would say the most important skill set you can learn is how to network. And I teach that in my MBA programs. You can always search YouTube videos for how to network if you want to take my programs. That's cool. But networks are really important. Your network is your net worth. Relationships are more important than product knowledge. And what happens with a lot of people that are younger, they're in school, they keep their heads down, they get good grades, and everyone's proud of them. Life is good. Then they join the corporate world, the real world, and they start working and they keep their heads down thinking that they're going to get recognized. And after a year or two, they look up and they're like, hey, wait a second, man. These people are getting raises and promotions faster than I am. Why is that? Because they networked internally and they asked. Closed mouths don't get fed. So I want you to set up tons of networking meetings if you can with people in your company and also outside your company. I've had many clients of mine that have changed industries just by setting up networking meetings, which is easy to do. And I teach that in my MBA program. Now, for everybody on this call that's in my Silver MBA program, I'm going to resume the weekly Zoom call starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time this week. The past 2 weeks I was off. I apologize for personal reasons. Yeah. Also, learn how to present and just feel comfortable having conversations with senior executives by telling yourself you just don't care what they think. That sort of thing. I'm not saying be rude or disingenuous, but I think you guys get the idea. I'm going to turn on portable air conditioner I have here. Give me a second. It is hot as hell here. And if it gets too if the noise is too loud from this portable AC, please let me know. Thank you. All right. All right. Next up. Okay. Hey Lay, how are you? Wrote, "Good morning, fearless leader." Thank you. Humbled to hear that. I like your emoji. You wrote, "I'm enjoying and learning a lot from your billions critiques." Thank you so much. I had to put that on hold for a couple of weeks. I usually release a blog every week, but I put it on hold for obvious reasons. Yeah. And then you wrote, "I think I want an Axe Capital shirt as well." Thank you. If you go to my YouTube channel and you watch the latest Billions videos, there's a link in there to buy the shirt. Yeah. And I do get paid like 10% of it if you buy that $15 shirt. Yeah. All right. Next up, Rowan wrote, "Any more run-ins with political people or celebrities other than Mr. Trudeau, who stole the girl from me?" Yeah. As I mentioned a couple weeks ago. Yeah, sure. I met with, Tony Robbins. He looked to invest in one of my companies in venture capital years ago. He's the real deal. When I shook his hand wrapped around mine like 18 million times. I met with Warren Buffett. He taught one of my classes at Columbia. But I got a funny story for you. I don't know if I should say this, but I don't care. So when I was in business school at Columbia in New York City, I was out with my buddy Richard Madison, and we were coming back from a bar, and we may have had too many drinks. And it was 2 in the morning, and we walked into a bar that was still open. We were surprised. Bars aren't open at that time back then in the late 90s. And I'm sitting at the bar, and the guy gives me a beer. The bartender's pretty cool. No one's in the bar. And then what happens is Ben Stiller walks in and sits beside me. Edward Norton walks in, and Jenna Elfman, and tons of other film people. And I'm like, what is going on? WTF? Why the face if my mom's watching? And Edward Norton was directing a movie, and it was called Keeping the Faith. And that's why they were all there. And Ben looked at me with his script there, and he said, "I can't believe we're still recording. We're still filming." And I said, "Me too, man. I just want to go home." And so what happened was Ed Norton pointed at me and my buddy and said, "You guys are in the next scene." He thought we were extras. So if you watch the movie Keeping the Faith in New York City, you'll see me in the scene in Carmine's. I hold some girl's hand and I walk behind Ed Norton, Jenna Elfman, who wasn't very nice to other people there, but Ed Norton was great, and so was everybody else. I walked behind them and went in to order a drink. Yeah. All right. Too much information there. All right. All right, next up, John. How are you? John Klee is from Rochester. He's great. He works with me. He's been helping me with these weekly calls for many years now. And so, what John does is within 1 hour of this weekly call being finished, if you go to the description field of this video, you'll see clickable access to every question asked. John is great. I miss you. I hope you're doing well, brother. So, John wrote, "Hey, Chris, I passed the CFP exam last week. Awesome. That stands for Certified Financial Planner. So you're helping rich people get richer." And then you wrote, "I'm thinking of doing the CFA next." The CFA is similar to the CFP, except instead of helping individuals become richer, you help companies become richer. CFA stands for Certified Financial Analyst designation. It's the best designation to have, better than an MBA if you want to work in finance, in my humble opinion. If you do the CFA, you write 3 exams over 3 years, and that's it. Yeah, but it helps. Yeah. And the largest concentration of CFAs is here in Toronto, actually. Yeah, on a per capita basis. Now, with respect to the CFP, you wrote, "I made so many flashcards, study guides for the exam. Can I sell guides online to prospective CFP students, or is that too niche?" You definitely can. You definitely can. Now, what I would say for your business model is I would model it after a cross between Kaplan. If you do a search on Kaplan, they have CFP and CFA classes, as well as something called Vault Reports. And you should go to the Vault Reports website, and I'll do this really quickly. And I recommend everybody go to this website if you're preparing to interview for a job. So you go to Vaults, and I told my son Andrew about this as he's doing interviews with McKinsey, etc. Okay, here it is. Maybe it's just vault.com. Vault.com. Okay, good. Phew. All right. So what you can do here is you can download books that will tell you how to interview for different companies, different sectors, etc. There are PDF books that you download, which are great. This way you never have any inventory issues. And John, for you, since we go way back, set up a call with me and I'll help you to create your own business for free, of course. We work together with respect to selling these guides online and also doing one-on-one coaching. Yeah. All right. Next, oh, Marin is here. Marin started a company called Skin Bell. Marin wrote, "Hi, Chris. Hope you and yours are well. Thank you. God bless you. Always good to see you. I'm looking forward to seeing you, Marin, first week of October in Kenya. Let me know if the floods are still an issue. Thanks. Good to see you. Okay, next question is, good morning, Chris. Hope you and your family are doing great. Thank you. Likewise. I know you've recommended LegalZoom, yeah, for cheap legal service, yeah. And for those of you overseas, if you can't find LegalZoom in your country, just do a search for what is your country's name equivalent of LegalZoom. Yeah. You wrote, how about Legal Shield? Do you have experience with them? Would you recommend them? I don't have any experience, so I can't recommend them. Sorry. You can look at Rocket Lawyer, I think, as well, if you want to. Yeah. All right. Let me just stop this fan from swinging. So it's pointing at me. Okay, good. All right. Next up, Sean wrote, hey, Chris, hope all is well. Thank you. Good to see you. You wrote, I have a question. In order to save time, would you recommend instead of forecasting financial statements, using earnings and revenue expectations and historical PE and price to revenue to predict target prices? No, no. What I would always do is this. The best way to value a company that you want to invest in that's publicly traded is to forecast an income statement for at least 5 or 10 years. And then your price targets to be based on the PE, based on earnings that you forecast in 5 or 10 years. So let me give you an example. Let's say you forecast earnings 5 years from now that are $1 a share. What do you value that company at? Well, you have to look at the earnings growth between years 4 and 5. So between years 4 and 5, earnings grew 20% to get to $1. Then you should value that company at 20 times that earnings estimate, meaning $1 in 5 years. So that would be a $20 target price. And yes, you can discount it back a bit using the cost of capital if you want to. And in my MBA degree program, I explain that in a lot more detail. Yeah. Yeah. Never rely on anybody else's intelligence or lack thereof when you're picking stocks. Always do the work yourself. Yeah. And I pride myself on teaching my students how to fish instead of providing you with a fish. Okay. All right. It's getting brighter outdoors. Maybe I'll adjust the exposure. Give me 1 second. Should be fine. Okay. All right. Almer wrote, hey, Chris, good to see you. Great to see you as well. JM wrote, how do you value intangible assets? For example, how do you place a value on Coca Cola's trademark, for instance? Seems very subjective. Yeah. The best way to think of it is if Coca Cola were to buy a smaller company, let's say they bought Red Bull, right? For example, and it's $100 a share and they pay $130 a share. Well, they're paying a premium, and that premium is the value they're placing on that brand, which they can sort of write off over time as what's called goodwill. Yeah. But I don't think you really have to add premiums to publicly traded stocks that are not being taken out when it comes to branding, etc. All you have to do is just look at their margins because it's already priced in. Yeah. And I can go into that in more detail if you want me to. Thanks. But there are firms that, and I don't respect this process, but there are firms that will go out and buy tons of patents and trademarks, and then sue other companies that are using something similar to that. Yeah, and that's partially what destroyed Research in Motion in Canada through the NTP lawsuit. You can look that up if you want me to, if you want to. Okay, Sanjay, how are you? I'm great, thank you. Good to see you. And then Maren wrote, "Hey Chris, so sorry to hear about Katie. Um, my prayers and hugs to you and your family, and Katie's family hugs to you. Thank you so much." And I know you went through this as well. And so Maren, the first time, and Maren goes by Skin Bell, that's her company. The first time Maren came on this weekly call was several years ago, and somebody named Jackie Haroun, which is my mom's name, made a comment. And I said, "Oh, wow, mom wrote that comment. Thank you, mom." And that wasn't my mom. I asked her. It was somebody else. But I'm glad it happened. Here's why. Maren had just lost her mother then. And she then wrote, "It's so nice that you have connection with your mom. My mom passed away recently." And so we set up a call. We're good friends. I'm going to see her in Kenya. We're building a school there. Yeah, and every time I do a call with Maren, there's a cross on the wall. You can barely see it that her mom painted with oil years ago. Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. Let me quickly show you Myron's company. So she graduated from my MBA program a while back. It's called Skin Bell, Skin Dash Bell. And she's from Kenya, lives in the United Kingdom now. But she created this incredible company using a Canadian company called Shopify for the infrastructure here to sell these products, which are amazing. Her business is taking off. Everybody, please go to skin-bell.com and buy one of these products. Yeah, great to see you. Okay. And then Connie wrote, "So sorry to hear, Chris. Hope you and your family are strong." Thank you. Thank you. We have strong faith. Next up, Manas wrote, "Good morning, my dear mentor. Great to see you." Manas is based in India. He wrote a great book called Bonds Before Business. He also has a ton of courses on Udemy on AI. So he wrote, good morning, my dear mentor, and an oh boy comments. Allez-vous à Canada, Montreal? Meaning, am I going, my accent's awful. Am I going to Montreal? Yeah, I'm not going there. I'm just here, just outside of Toronto, Mississauga, spending time with my family. Yeah. But I do love Montreal. And it's called Montreal because there's a hill in the middle called Mount Royal. And in French, Mont Royal, Montreal. Yeah. Okay. All right. And Sean wrote, "How often should you revise your financial target price?" Every quarter. And the reason I say that is companies release earnings every quarter. And what I want you to do is using the templates I provide you with in the MBA program, I want you to update your financial statements, meaning the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow from that current quarter and see if your EPS in 5 or 10 years goes up based on that. Yeah. And usually the way it works is this. If a company beats earnings by 20%, the stock gaps up 20%. If a stock misses earnings by 30%, sometimes the stock will gap down by 30%. And what's happening behind the scenes is professional investors at hedge funds and mutual funds. They update their financial model with the new financial report that just came out, meaning the 8K. And that will, because the numbers are lower or higher, that will impact their price target longer term. Yeah. And Rowan wrote, "Praying for you and your family. God bless." Thank you so much. Okay. Next up, can you explain how Tesla's federal credit works? Yeah. My mom bought a Tesla. She paid 7,500 federal credit, but she was able to use only 5,000. Is it possible to use the rest in the coming year? It all depends where you live. Before you buy a house or a car where you're going to get tax benefits, always talk to your accountant first. Always, always, always. Yeah. But sometimes you'll pay full sticker price, then you'll get a big write-off depending on what state you live in or country when you file taxes. Talk to your accountant first. Okay. Next question is, Tesla miss earnings this time, actually quarter on quarter in a row. Elon is hardcore Republican now, donating a ton of money. He wants to buy $5 billion stake in XAI form. Tesla, is it okay? Yeah. So what I will say is this: Elon didn't really. We thought he was Republican. He didn't really disclose who he was voting for and going to support. He said, "I'll wait until November or whatever." And then Trump got shot, and that whole fight, unbelievable video. And right after that, what happened was Elon sent out a tweet fully supporting Trump And he also stated that he is donating 40 or $45 million per month to some Republican affiliated program. Yeah. In terms of, is this a distraction for him? I would say a little bit less so. When Elon bought Twitter, called X now, Tesla stock went down a lot. And I hate investing in companies when the founder or CEO has a new pet project. Like they buy a sports team, that's a good candidate to short that company, maybe. Yeah. But I think he's much more focused on Tesla now. Yeah. Yeah. He's got to watch what he says, obviously, because he might, I don't know, upset certain voters. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Manos wrote, because you're in Canada, please tell me your favorite and least favorite Canadian public company name sector you're bullish on in Canada for the next 10 years. Yeah. There's not much to choose from a technology perspective here. I would say Shopify. I still think it's a great company longer term. There's a lot of great natural resources companies here. The banks are very secure as well. There's only 6 banks in Canada. It's heavily regulated by the government. So I'd probably say Shopify, but do your own research first. I don't own that stock. In terms of my least favorite, anything that touches marijuana. So there's a lot of marijuana stores here in Canada and the United States now, but there's a ton of smaller cap marijuana stocks in Canada. People are making money on. I don't think marijuana should be legal unless it's for medicinal purposes. Yeah. All right. Next up, Troy wrote, hey, Troy, first time seeing you on the call. Hope you join us again. Troy wrote, was Toys R Us a leveraged buyout? Do you know why Toys R Us went bankrupt afterwards? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know too much about the LBO on Toys R Us. But what I will say is this. Why open any retail store if Amazon exists? Yeah. So it's just too hard to compete. Yeah. Okay. And there's a company called eToys that went belly up because of that reason as well, around 1999 or 2000, because everybody kind of thought, hey, I can just buy my stuff from Amazon. Yeah. Yeah. And then Manas wrote, yes, I'm going to read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Darn. Yeah. Okay. Next up, DF wrote, how do you start unique YouTube content? Yeah. Well, I would only create content on stuff you're passionate about. Like, don't see it as a job. Like for me, I create, lots of vlogs on movies, like Wall Street, TV shows like Billions, etc., because I love doing that. And I'm working right now actually on The Big Short. That's coming soon. But do what you love doing. And if you want to try to game the system, which I've never done, but what some YouTubers do is they'll go to Google and look for trending keywords in specific regions in the world. So for example, if a trending keyword right now is employee stock option programs in New York State, I'm making this up, then make a video about that because it might work with the algorithm. That's not my cup of tea though. Okay. And then Sean wrote, what are some investing opportunities we could focus on regarding AGI? Yeah. So there's Nvidia's already had a good run. I've owned it for a while, but I'm going to show you how to think about investing in AI or any theme you want to invest in. So let's go together to etfdatabase.com. That's etfdb.com. And it looks like they just changed their website here. We go to ETF Screener. And then what you can do is you can go ETFs by type. I'm sure there's one on AI here somewhere. Let me do a search, find artificial. Here it is, artificial intelligence ETFs. Okay. And what you can do is you can look through these ETFs here that have some AI exposure. And the reason I mention this is because you can look at what the holdings are of this, right? So BOTZ is one ETF. Let me go to finance.yahoo.com and I'll type in BOTZ. That's how we say in Canada. And then you can look at the holdings. Okay, this is robotics and artificial intelligence. You click here on holdings. Then you look at the holdings here and you can do work yourself to decide which one of these might be a good AI investment. Not many of these are pure plays. ABB is a Swiss-based engineering and construction services company. Intuitive Surgical, of course, has some AI capabilities, etc. Yeah, so just do work on it this way, and you can look at the other holdings and maybe find smaller caps that might be great AI investments. Yeah. Okay. But if you want to understand the best private companies when it comes to artificial intelligence and what private companies you can look to maybe invest in if you can get a slice of it, it's tough, and what private companies to use in your company in order to increase your profit margins, what you can do is you can go to Sequoia's website. Okay, Sequoia is the #1 venture capital firm in history. Sequoia help. Sequoia cap. Did I spell it wrong? I think I got it. Okay. Yeah. And Sequoia, 5% of their investments are in unicorns, meaning companies with $1 billion market cap. And the other top 10 venture capital firms only have 1% of their companies in unicorns. There's nobody better from them. So once you're on this page here, there's an AI. They had it here somewhere. Okay, give me 1 second. It's a map of AI companies. And they just changed their website here. Okay. But they have a list of all AI companies they recommend by sector. It's on their website somewhere here. I think they just changed it. Let me do it here. Let's go to artificial. See if we can find it. Huh. AI. All right. Yeah, I can't find it. But anyway, they've got a table of all the AI companies. They just changed their website. It's there, I promise. Yeah. Okay. Oh my God, I'm going to be stubborn. Give me 1 second. This is bad, Chris. But let me go to, I'm going to go to Google. Okay. Let me go to Sequoia Cap. This is how you search on a website itself. SequoiaCap.com colon artificial intelligence. Here it is. I found it. Yeah. So Google always has a better search engine than companies themselves. Okay. So this here is called, and they just changed this up. Hopefully the chart is down here somewhere. Yeah, they've got charts of companies and products that you can look into as well. Anyway, let's do a search on their website. You'll find all that stuff. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up, we lost a couple of people there. Sorry for diverging. All right, Fred. Oh my God, Fred Mendoza. Great to see you, Fred. It's been a couple of years, and Fred once was standing beside the rock and took a picture and recorded a video for me. Good to see you. Fred is based in Baltimore. You wrote, hello, Professor Chris. Hope you're well. Any course recommendations on both vertical and conglomerate mergers and acquisitions? Yeah. If you go to Udemy, there's a company called 365, and just do a search on their courses. I'm sure they have something like that. Yeah. And in the MBA degree program, if you go, which you have, if you look at the FA track, finance and accounting, I do a lot of stuff on mergers and acquisitions. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then Fred wrote, also, did you ever think Nvidia would be such a beast of a stock that it is? I didn't think it would go this high, but investment trends always last longer than we think. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah, and there's not many other pure plays, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are looking at AMD as well. Okay, but what I would do if you want to invest in companies that do well based on what Nvidia buys, what I would do is go to the annual report for Nvidia, meaning the 10K, and go to the risk section and do a search on suppliers. And you'll find companies in supply chain that supply Nvidia. Maybe those are good investments longer term as well, after you do your research, of course. All right, next up, Manas wrote, a lot has happened in the United States since we met, yeah, since the last call, yeah. Trump wants to build walls and put tariffs again on every country, especially China. His motives to bring down the EU and NATO may create a ripple effect. I don't think he wants to bring down the European Union. With respect to NATO, I think what Trump is upset about is that the United States pays more money than other countries to support NATO. Yeah. In terms of building walls, I love globalization, and I'll tell you why. Because if we are all interconnected, then we all have no choice but to get along. With respect to walls, I don't mind having a more secure border with the Canadian border. I'm going to be careful here, and the Mexican border to make sure that drugs don't come into America. I think that's totally fine. Yeah. And it's a bipartisan thing as well. And Kamala really should have tried to enforce that at the border. Yeah. Not telling you who I'm voting for, but maybe read between the lines, or maybe not. Okay. But I do know that in Canada, for my Canadian viewers, I want to buy a hat, and I've seen people wearing red hats that say "Make Trudeau a drama teacher again." Yeah, just kidding, sort of. All right. Don't ever talk about politics though when you're in informational meetings, please. And I lost a couple of viewers there as well. Sorry, Trudeau fans. Sorry, sort of. Okay. All right. Next up, with respect to solar companies, how those 25-year warranty works if a company closed or went bankrupt, and what is yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that because when choosing which solar company to invest in, I chose longevity, and I knew there was a chance they would go bankrupt. And when they tried to get me to buy the panels or rent the panels or lease the panels, I chose the cheapest option because I knew that if the company went bankrupt, it would cost them too much money to come to my house and take them off. Yeah. Yeah. And then in terms of starting capital to open a solar company, it's extremely high. Yeah. And I don't like investing in companies where there's an extraordinarily high amount of overhead. Yeah. I like software companies, internet companies, because there's no inventory issues. Yeah. And be really careful investing in clean tech companies because the only reason many of them exist, and yes, I am an environmentalist, but the only reason many of them exist is because of high government subsidies. And if those subsidies are pulled, those companies go belly up, which is what happened in the 2008 financial crisis. In 2008, we were within 24 hours of bank machines not working. And countries like Spain that had massive subsidies for solar had to get rid of those subsidies or the country might have gone bankrupt. And of course, solar stocks got absolutely killed. And I don't like investing in companies where they get too much handouts in terms of government support. And the reason is as follows. So there's a great economist called Michael Porter. And in 2000, he wrote a book and he came up with the Porter's Five Forces model. In 2000, he wrote a book called Can Japan Compete? And of course, I think they can. But what he did was this. He analyzed the entire Japanese economy just after World War II. And for obvious reasons, the Japanese economy was broken then. And what happened was after World War II, the Japanese government created subsidies and gave money and handouts to every single sector in the economy except for two. The two sectors that didn't get any money were number one, automotive, number two, consumer electronics. And yes, there's a lot of successful Japanese companies in all sectors, but they're incredibly successful in automotive and consumer electronics. Yeah. Companies have got to learn to stand on their own 2 feet. Okay. Okay, next up, my weed is legal in California, and there are lots of public companies there, but specifically I've seen in Canada and the United States, companies goes bankrupt or lose 90% of their value. So why is it a good industry? Yeah. So what happens is when there's a new shiny toy or a new investment thesis, everybody rushes in, it's human nature, and buys up all the companies and all ships rise together, including the crappy companies. Right. Then when reality sets in and there's a pullback in those shares, the weaker companies go belly up. It happened in the late 90s as well with dot-com bubble 1.0, with e-toys, which I mentioned earlier today, as well as pets.com, etc. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Aviation Mentor wrote, good to see you again, Chris. Always look forward to your sessions. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. That makes two of us. Okay. And this is my son Dylan's walking in. Hold on a second. Hey, buddy. All right. Oh, all right. He just got me Tim Hortons. This is Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Tim and Yaba, my sister, got it as well. This is the best coffee ever. Okay. So this is a teachable moment. Okay.
Mhm.
So in the United States, Starbucks has maybe 40% market share. In Canada, Tim Hortons has like 70% share. It's a rite of passage. Okay, I'm going to enjoy my coffee. Why don't you say a couple of words? Tell them what you're doing this summer.
Um,
Let me get closer to that. Yeah.
I'm golfing this summer
Yeah.
and going back to California
Yeah.
on Monday
Yeah.
and then start school in middle of August.
Awesome. Awesome. You start in high school.
Yeah,
Yeah. And how'd you shoot in golf the other day?
I got at Rocky Crest or other course.
The recent one or whatever. Yeah.
I got 82.
82 on the front nine. That's great, sweet thing. No, no, that's great.
All right.
Just started a couple months ago. I love you so much. Are you going now?
Yeah.
Mom?
No, not yet.
Okay. Come give me a hand before you go. Cross. All right. Thanks. And close the door. Thanks for the coffee. Thanks. All right. He's like a son to me. All right. And close the door. Yes. Oh, he closed it quietly. Usually slams it. Okay. All right. Where was I? Ida. Ida, also from Toronto, who's a radiologist like my father and my brother. And for those of you not familiar with radiology, it means fixing radios. Ida, who's in my MBA program. Well, welcome back, Chris. So sorry to hear for your loss. Thank you. Recovery takes time. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, we're getting through this. Katie is smiling in heaven. Yeah, miss her. Yeah, but she suffered. She was suffering from lupus, terrible disease, for about 15 years, and so she's no longer suffering. All right, Ida wrote, "Welcome back, Chris. Can you remind me of the contents of your morning superfoods drink?" Absolutely, absolutely. So I try to make it here as well. So every Sunday I make 7 of these things, and what's in them is the following: kale, okay, and I juice it, right? So kale has more protein than anything else. A lot of people don't realize that. So there's a lot of kale in these things. Also in this is raw ginger root, blueberries because it's an antioxidant, flax seeds. If you're a guy, you have to do that so you don't get a certain type of cancer. I also put whey protein. I put raw mushroom extract. I put fish oil as well, omega. I put strawberries as well, and a couple of other powders like acai, which is a South American superfruit. Yeah, and what I do is my first meal of the day is my bulletproof coffee, which I'm drinking here out of a straw so it doesn't make my teeth black. And then my second meal is I slowly sip this all day and only take a sip when you're hungry and then stop. And then, yeah, I make a big salad at night usually as well. And my father-in-law, Christine's dad, here in Canada, one hack he has is this: whenever he eats dinner, he'll eat what's on his plate. Then he'll finish a whole glass of water, and that glass of water fills him up, so that he's not hungry for a second serving. Yeah. Oh my God, I love Tim Hortons coffee. So good. In your face, Starbucks. Stuff's the best. Okay. All right. Manas wrote, the NASDAQ fell every time Mr. Trump talks about tariffs. Yeah, makes sense. The market should in general. Fun fact, Nvidia earned 68% from China last year than it did this year. I guess that means more. Yeah, it's a lot. We again, I hope globalization continues so that we are codependent on each other. Yeah, but I do think for national defense reasons, there should be even more government support for startups in the chip sector longer term. Yeah, yeah. All right. And then Mohsen wrote, great to see you. Hope you join us again. My dad's best friend was named Mohsen. Mohsen wrote, when you lose money on stocks, how much can you write off per year? You have to talk to your accountant. Everybody's financial situation is different depending on where you live, etc. And please, I can get down on my knees for this, sort of. Okay. Please, everybody get an accountant. I don't want anybody to do your own taxes. I promise you, you'll not only get money back, but they'll keep you within the confines of the law longer term. And doing your own taxes is like doing surgery on yourself. If you're an accountant, you study new tax codes, which change all the time. Yeah. And for those of you that are thinking of starting a company or already run a company, get the same accountant to do your business and personal taxes. Get 2 credit cards, everything personal here, everything business here. Your accountant will take care of the rest at your end. Yeah. All right. Next up, Erkin John wrote, by the way, thank you very much for the inspiration. Thank you for inspiring me as well, all of you. My students inspire me. And when one teaches to learn, you wrote, I got my walking/running pad 2 days ago. And as I answer this question, I got to show you this image here. Okay, good. I got my walking standing pad 2 days ago and expecting a standing desk converter by Vivo. Nice. I want to get my 10,000 steps daily. Thank you again. My pleasure. And you know what's amazing? If you walk at this pace, exactly this pace, all day long, okay, all day, you will get between 20 and 30,000 steps, and you won't even realize you're walking after a while. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I promised my mom and dad I'd put this stuff in storage when I leave, but I think my mom wants me to keep it here. She might want to use it. Okay. I even do this during meetings. I just walk slowly. Yeah. Okay. And I promise you, everybody, you guys got to do this. You're going to accomplish way more, and you'll multitask, and it's fun, and you'll feel better as well. And when you take in more oxygen, this works gooder as well. It just works. It's the best biohack ever. Okay, Manastro, you're right, my mentor. And give me 1 second. Ah, it jumps on me sometimes. Okay. You're right, my mentor, Chris, please. It's tough with investment banking, yes, in India. JP Morgan was offering that position, but working hours are a hell of a lot, and it's too much dumb work that even AI can do. Yes, I agree. I agree. Yeah, before anybody wants to go into investment banking, always ask yourself why, not how, why. And I think the only reason you should do it is not to make money, but the only reason you should do it is because you like finance, but you're not sure what you want to do in finance yet. So do investment banking for a couple of years and then move on to something else in finance, like investing or whatever it might be. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next question is: I recently got MetaQuest 3. How can I use it more for productivity? And what are your general thoughts on VR? Yeah. So I have the Vision Pro. Actually, I brought it here as well. Nice distraction for my parents. I think it's a failed product. My nieces and nephews are here as well for the funeral. And what I did was I let them try it, and they were so excited to try it. And when they put it on, like, oh my God, this is so cool. But after 10 minutes, they all stop using it. It's just sitting there. There's no killer app. But the Apple VR product is much better than any other VR product out there because you don't get sick. There's no motion sickness. And that's the biggest deal right now with VR products. So a couple of years ago, Meta signed a $20 billion deal with the Department of Defense in the United States to use their Quest or whatever that product is called now to help them with surface warfare training. And 80% of the people that use that reported motion sickness. So Apple's does not have that. So when you put on the Apple Vision Pro, you can kind of see everything around you. It looks like kind of 1080-ish. But when you put on like a Meta product, it feels like it's 480-ish or 720. Yeah. Yeah. In terms of productivity, so I've used it. So I was really sick, well, just sick, I should say, back in January, and I couldn't get out of bed. So I wrote a book actually using it. So I was lying in bed, and I had Word here and Excel as well, and a browser as well to go back and forth with McGraw-Hill to make corrections to the book that they were publishing. You can also use it with a couple of screens at the same time, right? Yeah. And there's a new version, the next release of Vision OS, Apple's VR OS, that's going to allow you to have a massive screen that looks virtual that wraps around you. Yeah, it looks pretty cool, but I'll have to try it before I can give you feedback. Yeah. And I actually did when the Apple product first came out, I think it was earlier this year. What I did was I actually did the webcast using VR. So you can go back to whatever the date was for the Apple product. I did it and I gave you a demo. Yeah. Okay. It's an okay version one, but too expensive. All right. Next question is from Masa, who wrote, "Where should I invest for my retirement? Ideal stocks. I'm 50." Yeah. Yeah. So what I would say, if you're not sure what to buy, then I would probably think about putting money after your research in the VOO. Okay, and the VOO, ticker VOO, represents the S&P 500, and it has very low fees, and that's where I personally put my money, where I'm not sure where to put money. Yeah. Okay. And Masao, I mentioned that if you're in the United States, if you're overseas, I would think twice about that, just given the FX foreign exchange impact. Yeah. But you can always go to ETFDB, that's etfdatabase.com, and pick your favorite ETFs there. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Manas wrote, the Wall Street Journal said that Nvidia can be worth of S&P 500 in 10 years, like $47 trillion. Your thoughts? Yeah. Um, I'm not, I can't understand the question, but in terms of Nvidia being a material percent of the S&P 500, if it gets too big, the government will split it up. Yeah, probably. Although it's a chip company. Okay. Next question is, what are your thoughts on a career in commercial real estate? It's had a, yeah, it's been tough. Yeah. It all depends. And my son Andrew's doing internship right now with Equity Residential. It's a publicly traded company in the United States. So he's doing commercial real estate. It all depends where you look. So for me, for example, I would never invest in real estate in a big city. Why? Because I think in the long run, I'm very long term focused. I think we're going to be using Zoom more often. Why the heck would we spend 2 hours every day driving into a city, getting ready for work, destroying the environment, and then go into an office tower? It's just illogical. In fact, if Zoom was invented before big cities, would we still have big cities? They wouldn't be as big. Yeah. But there's value everywhere if you look hard enough. And Mohsen, this fall, if you're in my MBA program, I'm releasing that complete real estate elective where I teach you a lot about commercial real estate as well. And there's different rules, like you cannot depreciate commercial real estate over 27 and a half years, which you can do with residential. With commercial, it's 40 years, etc. And it's going to be a global course as well. I teach you about real estate all over the world. Yeah, I'm working hard on that. And then Troy wrote, I enjoy listening to your stories. Thank you. And always laugh at me, not with me. Yeah. Okay. But at the end of the night, when we all had to go home after we were done filming, I talked to Ben Stiller, and he's really, really nice guy. And we went to the food truck and ate lots of food. Yeah. My name wasn't in the credits though. Okay, Matteo, good to see you. Matteo is 25, I think, in Italy. And my son Matthew is in Italy right now in Florence or Vicenza. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Manas wrote, Google acquired a 4-year-old company for $20 billion. Did the deal go through, or I'm not sure the deal went through? Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know much about the company. I saw the headlines and I saw the deal fell through. Yeah. And if there's a breakup fee, the investment banker still gets some money. Yeah. And the company is being acquired as well. Yeah. But I think what's going to happen is like it kind of surprises me that these big tech companies in the United States are not broken up. Like if you think of it logically, Google owns the two biggest search engines in the world, Google and YouTube. It doesn't make sense that the government hasn't broken them up. But I think for strategic defense reasons and security reasons, the US government is letting these companies that should be broken up get bigger and bigger and bigger. And Google thought many years ago that they were going to get broken up. And I think that's why they renamed themselves Alphabet, which is a holding company. And the same thing with Facebook. They renamed themselves Meta because at some point, Facebook will be an independent company. Same thing with Insta, WhatsApp, etc. Yeah. But I think what the DOJ is doing right now in terms of thinking about competition, what they're doing is they're not allowing these big tech companies like Meta to buy very small startups. They block tons and tons of deals. Yeah. And it's interesting because the S&P 500 is up way more than the Russell 2000 smaller cap index this year. And that doesn't usually happen, when the market goes up. Usually small caps outperform. But there are lots of tech companies in the S&P 500, but fewer small tech companies in the United States as part of the Russell 2000. And that's because there's not enough competition because these big tech companies have dominated. Yeah, yeah. It's tricky. All right. Next up, Mohsen wrote, hope you and your family are well. Thank you. I'm going to be in your son's position for recruiting. I've networked about 30 bankers and have great internships. My GPA is bad. Given my bad GPA, should I disclose that to the bankers that have said it will help? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't, okay. Not putting something on your resume is okay. That's not unethical. Like I got a D in accounting when I first took it at McGill University 8 million years ago. I wouldn't put that on my resume. So you never want to tell a verifiable lie or any lie ever, of course. But whatever you put on your resume, they're going to do a background check. But not including something like your GPA is okay. You don't have to do that. Yeah. And if you interview exceptionally well, and they like you, they're going to look past that GPA anyway. And it's always explainable as well. Like for me, I had a bad GPA my first year because I got mono. So I was partying too hard. Thank God I got mono, was in the hospital. Otherwise, I would have failed all my exams. No regrets. Um, but that's explainable. Of course, I had to work my butt off to get better grades. And yeah, that's how I mentioned, that's how I talked about it in interviews. I was sick. Yeah. And you might be supporting yourself and your family. And if you mention that your GPA wasn't as high because you were multitasking and supporting your family, that's okay. And that's respectable. And we can turn this weakness into a strength because you know how to multitask. As a result, you're very productive from a time management perspective. Yeah. And if you're in the silver MBA, Mohsen, today at 10 a.m. Pacific time, what we can do is there's a Zoom call, and I can help you out, go over your LinkedIn profile, and yeah, yeah. And a little side note for everybody in this call, um, whatever you think your biggest weakness is, it's actually your biggest strength when you're interviewing. I know that sounds strange, but it all depends how you spin it and how you sell it. So what I want you to all to do is this. I want you to all go to ChatGPT and type exactly this. I'm interviewing for a job. My GPA was low, or whatever weakness you have. And I think it was because of these reasons. In 50 words or less, turn that perceived weakness into a strength, and it will do it. Yeah. Yeah. And I never hire somebody just because they have a high GPA. I want somebody that's social, that can, I don't know, grip and grin and network as well. That's why the people growing up that had the top grades in your class are not the most successful now. And you know what I mean. Okay. And then Erkin John wrote, I'm sorry for your loss. I'll pray for her in my next prayer. Thank you. Thank you. And I start each day thanking God for 10 things. Then what I do is I read a passage of the Bible. It's a Bible called Jesus Calling. You can get it on Kindle. It's written for kids, so it's easier to understand. To me, alert. Sorry. Yeah. And that gets me to a peak mental state. If you practice gratitude before you get up every day, you're going to be happy all day. And if you're happy all day, you'll be more productive. So what I usually do is I thank God for 10 things in this order before getting up. Andrew, Matthew, Dylan, my kids, my wife, Christine, my mom, my dad, my brother, Jamie, my sister, Katie, who's in heaven now, my sister, Elizabeth, and 10, all of you. I'm grateful. Practice gratitude. All right. All right. And then next up, George wrote, George, who's writing a book by December 2nd of this year, wrote, "Hi Chris, I started many companies, and by the way, I saw your emails on the crypto stuff. Ask me if you want. What you can do is ask me during the 3 hour office hours call today for platinum students, platinum, gold, silver students. Yeah. But you wrote, I started many companies. I have 3 companies I want to start. Not certain on the business model. Any recommendations? Yeah, absolutely. So you started my gold and platinum program, MBA program, May 6th. That was a Monday. You guys are just finishing up the first semester. In the third semester, specifically in E3-1 through E3-5, that's entrepreneurship semester 3, class 1 through class 5, we do a venture capital boot camp. And I teach you how to write an incredible business plan. And I've raised and managed over $1 billion in my career. So I'll teach you how to raise capital as well. I don't want anybody spending a penny on your startup until you write a full business plan, because failing a plan is planning to fail. Okay. Great to see you, George. Okay. And Manas wrote, my love and affection to you and your entire family. Thank you. God bless Katie and y'all. We face that someday. Yeah. But God knows better for all of us. Love and respect. Yeah. 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 And God always knows what's going to happen. Again, she was suffering a lot from lupus, which is a terrible disease. She had it for 15 years, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. So she's in a better place. We miss you. Okay, and you're most welcome, Lauren, for that comment. Okay, next up, Manas wrote, the Indian government raised short-term tax less than a year to 20%. It's going to hurt day trading. Good, and I say it with love my heart, so I'll explain why in a second. Um, yeah, yeah. So what a lot of governments do, including the United States, is they make taxes higher for short-term capital gains. So if I buy a stock today and sell it tomorrow, meaning within this year, I pay higher taxes. But if I hold something longer term, meaning more than a year, I pay less in taxes. And that's a good thing, right? And I'm a libertarian. I believe in tiny government and freedom of the individual and stuff. But having a higher tax on short-term gains, I think, is healthy. And the reason it's healthy is because the government and all of us should hate volatility in the markets. And we have all fallen into this trap, everybody in this call, of buying a stock and selling it too soon, right? And you look at what the stock price is at now and you're like, darn it, I wish I had held it. So whenever I invest in a company, I always tell myself, I don't know the path, but I know the destination. So just buy and hold after your research, and never sell it, or have that, like Warren Buffett thinks whenever he buys a stock that the stock market will be closed for 10 years. Obviously, it won't be, but you got to think longer term like that. And that's why a lot of people on this call that have retirement savings accounts, your retirement savings account does better than your personal trading account because you haven't sold. And if we take a look at the chart of the S&P over the past 2 decades, it looks like this. Wouldn't it be great to just think about that and ignore this crap in the middle? But people try to day trade, day trade, day trade. They lose money and they pay more in taxes. Just buy and hold. You'll sleep better at night too. All right, Carolyn from France, now in Nova Scotia, wrote, "Good morning, Chris. All my condolences for your little sister. Courage for your beautiful family. Thank you for the emojis. God bless you. I'm looking forward to seeing you today at 10 a.m. As well." Yeah, let me do this. Okay, so we start at 11. So we got half hour left, I think. 30-minute timer.
30 minutes, counting down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I usually think in West Coast time. Okay. And Manas wrote, "You're a genius of a man, working in film as VC teacher. Thank you. And a great human being as well. Thank you. With lots of faults too. What is one thing you want to do before calling it the day? Like one unique thing that makes sense." Yeah. So my goal is to build 1,000 schools. And I'm working on my second one right now. One data point does not make a trend, two does, sort of. So I'm going to build 1,000 schools. Yeah, yeah. And I was also in late stage discussions with friends of mine in Bethlehem about building a school there, in the West Bank. We got approval from the mayor of Bethlehem. I put that on hold though, just for geopolitical reasons. It doesn't make sense at this point. Yeah. But I think what I'm going to do is just focus on, and I was supposed to go to Israel this late August. Yeah, fly into Tel Aviv and then drive an hour and a half to Bethlehem. But it just doesn't make sense now. So I think what I'm going to do is just focus on Africa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And my wife, her dad's Palestinian. So when we went to Israel, we went to Haifa to visit her family there. Um, and when things die down, I recommend everybody go to Israel. Just go to visit. It's the birthplace of three great religions. Um, yeah, and the food is good there too. Yeah, especially the cherries right by the Golden Heights. Now, I went in the summer of 2017 to Israel with my wife and my three boys. And we went everywhere. We spent a lot of time with Christine's family in the north of Israel. The only two places we didn't go was Masada, which I didn't want my kids to be exposed to that story, and also the Golan Heights. We went right by it to get cherries, really good cherries, but we didn't go up the Golan Heights. And the reason we didn't is because in the distance you can see flashes of light in Damascus, and that's where ISIS is ending people's lives and stuff. Yeah, yeah. All right, let me get back on track though and answer questions. All right, next up, Nils. Hey, Nils wrote, hey, Chris, I'm starting my first M&A, meaning mergers and acquisitions internship at a smaller boutique firm in a couple of weeks. Congratulations. Could you share some advice on what I should do and avoid doing to become the best intern possible? Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So I hate to say this, but FaceTime matters. I want you to be FILO, which is a term I came up with, which stands for first in, last out. Okay. I want you to be there every day except for Sunday or whatever your religious day is. Whenever you're asked to do something, always ask, no problem, please let me know when you need this by. Okay. And then you over deliver, you get it back to them way before that deadline as well. If you have a lot, and this advice I'm giving is for anybody just starting a job too. If you have a lot of questions, and you're gonna have a lot of questions, I don't want you to ask the same person all the questions. I want you to divide those questions amongst many people. I also want you to become very good friends with your boss's assistant. Why? Because your boss's assistant has been with your boss for many years, probably at several companies together. And they know what the rules are to get promoted and what to do, what to say, etc. And they'll love to mentor you. Yeah. Another thing I'll say is this. In the first week or two on a new job, I don't want you to be too proactive. I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. I kind of want you to do what's asked of you and just observe the culture. Because every corporate culture is a little bit different. And if you do certain things or you're too proactive in certain areas, you might ruffle feathers. So just observe for the first week or two. Another thing I recommend doing is do an advanced search on LinkedIn for people that work at that firm. And it might not work because it's a smaller boutique firm, but people that work at that firm that have things in common with you. Like maybe they went to the same high school or undergrad as you did. And email them internally in the corporate email and just say something like this. Joanne, hope all is well. I also went to XYZ High School. I'm interning here. Please let me know if you have time for a coffee over the next few months. Thanks a lot, comma, your future boss. No, thanks a lot, Chris. Yeah. Find many mentors or rabbis. They'll help you. Yeah. 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 And triple check all your emails, please. And every email should have please and thank you in it. Less is more. Don't send long emails. Never have more than 3 sentences in one paragraph as well. Yeah. All right. And then holy moly. I'm smiling. My brother used to say that when we were growing up. He said, you changed the background. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. So this is, I'm actually at my parents' place. And this painting was from another room. I put it up here. I promised my mom I'd put it back. Um, Flowers here. I tried to balance the background as well. Feels like an art gallery. I'm on my stepping stool here. Yeah. Okay. And then Caroline wrote, come visit us for a sale on Lake Ontario at the Bluffs. I'd love to. I'd love to. And I'm supposed to meet up with Kemi Tade and her husband, but it might be tough. It might be tough. And I'm here with my family. But if we ever do meet, and we will, and we go out for coffee, when the bill comes, I'm going to do exactly this. I have alligator hands. I can't find my wallet. T-Rex can't do push-ups. No, I'll pay for it. And of course, we'll have a Tim Hortons. Yeah, Tim Hortons used to be a hockey player, played for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah. Okay. And then McFlash, who has a picture. Oh, dude, I love it. I can see it. You have a picture of Bill Gates when he got arrested for driving his car too fast in Albuquerque. Yeah, I love your picture. I can see it there. Very cool. So McFlash, and I'm smiling because I'm thinking McLovin. So McFlash wrote, "Is that your company?" Yeah. If you're talking about what I do, yeah, I own 100% of it. I've had lots of offers for other people to invest. I'll never take a penny. Yeah, because once you take a penny of somebody else's money, you're trying to please them instead of trying to please your customers, which are my students. And that's why I've never done any endorsements of other products and stuff on my website or YouTube channel. You are my customers. That's it. And the second becomes about money only, it's like, forget it. Yeah. So I own 100% of this thing. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Erkin John wrote, do you think it's worth to start FBA Amazon business as a side income? Yeah. What I would do first before you do that is just to experiment. What I would do from an arbitrage perspective is I would do this. I would go to AliExpress, okay, which is an Alibaba website. And what I would do is I would find cheaper things here to buy and try to sell them on eBay first, just to kind of see if there's a market for it, right? So, for example, I don't know, you pay $1.40 for something everybody wants. I don't know, maybe one of these products, $1.40. Buy a couple. It'll take a while for it to ship to you, and you have to buy in bulk. And then try to resell this stuff for $10 or $20 on eBay, just to kind of get the feel for arbitrage. And this is exactly what oh shoot, I'm so sorry. I didn't show the screen. I had a senior moment there, folks. Okay. The older I get, the better I was. But you go to AliExpress, right? This is a Chinese website. Alibaba owns it. You buy a bunch of these things here for $1.40 each. Try to sell them on eBay for like 10 or 20 bucks, just to kind of understand what arbitrage is all about. Yeah, and I did this with my kids actually. So what we did was we bought thousands of iPhone cases years ago. My kids wanted to get an iPhone. I didn't want to be one of those parents that just kind of gives the kids everything. So what we did was each of my kids sold. They had to sell 200 of these each. Okay, and there's no logo on it. Be careful with copyright. And that they had a $5 profit margin on eBay. And I had on the fridge in the kitchen, I had a big grid, 200 squares for each kid. And they would do an X in each box. They made $5 profit margin on selling each of these. Once they sold 200, that's $1,000. Then they got their iPhones. Yeah. But I'm not an expert in FBA. Yeah. All right. Roy wrote, hey, Chris, good to see you and hope you're doing well. Thank you. And first time see you on the webcast. I hope you join us again. Thank you. And if there's any issues, like please give me feedback on the audio quality, if there's an issue on audio quality and video quality, because I want to make it perfect for you guys. And as it gets brighter, I have to change the exposure a bit. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Manas wrote, why is AMD failing? Yeah. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I don't know. But it definitely ran up a lot since ChatGPT was released in November a couple of years ago. Yeah. Okay. I was on the board with the CEO of AMD for years. Rory was his name. Yeah, nice guy in Texas. Okay. Super Dave Guitar, good to see you. Next up, if China gets hit by tariffs, they may dump U.S. Treasury long term. Yeah, yeah. I don't think they'll do that, and I'll explain why. Okay, so all right, the way that Donald Trump works, love him or hate him, he gets a deal done. Okay. What usually happens in a negotiation is one party says, I want this, the other party says, I want this, and they meet in the middle. The way that Trump does it is the other party says this, Trump says this, and then they meet over here. Right. So I know I oversimplified it. Yeah. But if the second largest holder of United States treasuries, meaning debt, or second hold is China. The largest is Japan. If China were to start selling a lot of their treasuries, what would happen is that might hurt the U.S. economy, could go into recession, but it would hurt China more. And the reason I say that is because China is very much exposed to the US market in terms of exports. Now, the Chinese government is trying to make China more domestic focused longer term, but they have lots and lots of structural problems, like real estate. There's a massive bubble there. So if the US economy were to slow down, right, this morning, oh my God, the GDP for Q2 is 2.8% versus expectation of 2.1. This economy's on fire. But if the US economy were to slow down, it would hurt China more in terms of exports. And Tiananmen Square would look like nothing compared to what would happen there. Because back in 1989, when we were lucky that CNN had a camera crew in Tiananmen Square, we got to see what happened. Fast forward to today, almost everybody has a camera crew in their pockets. Yeah, so social unrest would be a big deal. Yeah, big deal. Yeah. I'm not a conspiracy guy. I don't think that coronavirus was manufactured in a lab by any means. But if we go back to late 2019, there was a lot of people in Hong Kong that started protesting for freedom reasons. And the Chinese government started a lockdown then for COVID, which was the right call. But maybe they could have tried to solve that issue earlier. Okay, I don't want to go there. I don't want to create conspiracy stuff at all. Yeah, I think COVID was just an accident. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then Ray wrote, "Why is marijuana worse than alcohol?" Yeah, I think alcohol in moderation is fine. Like red wine has got resveratrol in it, which slows down aging a little bit, but you can take pills for that, like I do. The reason I don't like marijuana, I think it's great for medicinal purposes, it's fine, is for me personally, it makes me lazy. Have I inhaled? Oh, you bet I have. Yeah. Um, it makes me lazy and it hurts my productivity and nobody wins. And maybe it doesn't make other people lazy, but it does for me. Another reason why I am very much against marijuana, except for medicinal purposes, is if people start with this, then they might think, oh, I'll try this as well, which I've never tried. Yeah. So I'm more conservative. Yeah. All right. Carlos, how are you, man? It's been a while. Great to see you. You always warm my heart. Carlos wrote, so sorry to hear about Katie. I had no idea. My heart and prayers to you and your family. So glad to see you. The best. Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Yeah. And going back to my comments about China, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding at all about that. I think that virus was just an accident, that sort of thing. But I do think that the lockdown did help to stop the protesters in Hong Kong. It was just a coincidence, I guess. Okay. All right. Next up, Super Dave Guitar wrote here. Give me 1 second. It jumps on me sometimes. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry. For crying out loud. So I have to do a search now for Super Dave Guitar. Good, not to be confused with Super Dave from Larry David show. Okay, here we go. All right, so SDG wrote something to Ray, which is we have decades study on alcohol, but we haven't been able to study marijuana longer term effects. Yeah, yeah, and we have to be really careful. We don't know about the longer term effects. Yeah, yeah. Okay, Loic wrote, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to be a lawyer in the banking and finance sector, specifically capital markets? Thanks. Ooh, goodness. I gotta say this. Okay, I love civil rights lawyers, but I'm always curious. Are you are you a jerk before you go to law school, or is that they teach you that in law school? I'm always curious about that. Just kidding, sort of. I don't know if I am. No, I'm not. Yeah. Okay, but in terms of being a lawyer in banking, Probably what I would do is you can do a couple things. Number one, you can go to work at a large investment bank and do an internship during law school to work in their legal department. But what's probably more beneficial for you is to actually do an internship and actually go work for a large New York-based law firm that focuses on finance-oriented law. Yeah, and I'm not an expert in that area at all. And years ago, I wanted to go to law school, and I went down to Harvard Law and started meeting with a lot of students and all that stuff. It was so boring for me. You got to read these massive things and learn how to argue, and I don't like arguing. Yeah, but all the power to you if you want to do that. Okay. All right. Next up, Eddie wrote, "Why don't you promote yourself for president? Haha. You'd have my vote." No, thank you, thank you. No, I would not be elected because of my awful dad humor. Yeah, and I repeat my jokes. It's just what I do. Yeah, thank you. Okay. And then Matei wrote, "What matters more in a Wall Street job? Educational background or networking?" Thank you. Without a doubt, it's networking. There are so many people that don't have high school degrees that have gone from the corner office, or pardon me, have gone from the mailroom to the corner office. There's so many examples. Sidney Weinberg, who was the CEO of Goldman Sachs for a long time, he didn't have an education. He didn't have an undergraduate education. He started in the mailroom. And the reason I mentioned the mailroom is because with the mailroom, your typical mailroom dude is, grips and grin. We'll give you the mail in the morning. Say, did you see the game last night? The Blue Jays beat the Yankees again, as they always do. That sort of thing. They can network. The same thing with David Geffen. He started in the mailroom. So did Barry Diller, the former president of ESPN, Simon Cowell from, I don't know what new show he's on now, but you guys probably know. Starting the mailroom is not a bad thing, but the important thing is that they learned how to network. And I teach that in my MBA program. You can learn more at harounmba.com. I teach you networking skills so you can get any job you want, or you can change careers or get more customers. Your network is your net worth. Relationships are more important than product knowledge. And even if you look at, the best entrepreneurs in the world, they're great at sales. They're salespeople, and they're great at networking as well. And if you or anybody in this call wants to work at any company, I promise you, if you have a great LinkedIn profile, which I teach in my MBA program, and you set up 50 networking meetings with people that work at those companies, you will get that job. You will. And everything I sell on my website, all my MBA programs have a 30-day, 100% money back guarantee. And we start my MBA programs with how to network. And if you find that you don't get that job by networking, within 30 days, you get your money back. So I tell my students also, I have a 30-day, 100% money back guarantee to the extent that if you're not getting a 10 times return on your investment in the first 30 days of taking my course or my courses or my MBA programs, you get your money back. And we start with networking. Yeah. Relationships are always more important than product knowledge. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, GBK wrote, "I'm always in meetings with people with years more experience than me. I can never contribute to these meetings because everything goes over my head. What do I do?" Yeah, I feel you. I know what you're talking about. Early on in my career, I would sit in meetings. I wouldn't say anything. And I thought everybody, thinks I'm dumb, but if I say something, they'll know I'm dumb. And then I got more confidence and I was able to add value. And every battle is won before it's been fought. That's a great quote from Sun Tzu in The Art of War. So before any meeting you go to, I want you to thoroughly research everything you think is going to be discussed and come up with intelligent ideas to solve those problems, so to speak. Now, I think the best way to run meetings is as follows. A couple months ago, I had Ilya Srebelov, who is the #1 venture capital professor on the planet. He's a professor at Stanford. I had him on my call. And we asked him, "How do you manage people?" And his response was this: whenever you hold meetings, you have to do this. You let the more junior people speak first, always. Otherwise, what happens is you get groupthink in the meeting. If a senior dude says something, the junior dude is probably going to agree with it or not disagree. Junior people always speak first in all meetings. That's a best practice we have to use. Another thing that's important to do in meetings is whenever a meeting starts and you guys have to decide on doing something important, either X or Y, if you think everybody is in favor of X, before the meeting starts, you select one person randomly in the room that has to argue for Y. And these are great tips from Ilya. Yeah. And you can always go in and just go to my YouTube channel and watch that Ilya interview. Yeah. He's a good guy. And I used to be part of the Stanford Graduate School of Business curriculum. He was the teacher, the professor. And what I would do is I would mentor his students in classes as well, Stanford Business School students. Yeah. Okay. And guest speaking, all that stuff. Okay. All right. Oh my goodness, Mark, how are you? Mark is goes by Satones, and he always types in caps, and I love it. And I told him to always do that because it always reminds me of my grandfather. Grandpa, I know you weren't yelling at me when you typed in caps in emails. My grandfather gave me great advice. He said, "Chrissy, buy land. They're not making it anymore." So Mark from Michigan wrote, "Hey brother, great to see you. Likewise." You wrote, "I talked to an SEC lawyer about regulation, A plus hedge fund versus 506C. Can you share your wisdom? My deepest condolences." Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what a 506C means. I know what a 501C is, like charity or something. Yeah, I don't know, but always rely on a lawyer for that stuff. Yeah, and you're a platinum graduate, so you can join me today for a couple hours for the weekly Zoom call we do as well. Yeah, and you of course always ask questions here too, but I can go into more detail in the Zoom calls. Okay. Next up, Ray wrote, "What will happen with stocks and investors if Google is broken up by the government?" Yeah. I would say that in some investors that own Meta and Apple and Microsoft would maybe sell those shares because they would think that, my goodness, if the DOJ breaks up Google, they're definitely going to break up these other large cap tech companies. Yeah. But in the long run, I think it would be healthy for the economy because competition is good for the consumer. Yeah. But there's also national security issues. I don't know anything about this stuff, but I'm sure there's government officials, but they're thinking that maybe we shouldn't break up these companies because it helps us from a national security reason perspective longer term. I don't know. Yeah. And I say that only because like it would make sense that lots of Congress people would be saying break up big tech, break up big tech. They're not. Okay. And then Mohsen wrote, "I appreciate the response. I'll definitely join the Silver MBA once my paycheck hits." Awesome. I'd love to have you join us. And so for anybody looking to join the Silver MBA program, there's a weekly Zoom call, and I'll show you how to access it. Okay. So you go to harounmba.com. Okay. And if you want to learn more about the MBA programs, then at the top, click MBA FAQs. And then you can scroll down to learn more about the products here. These two are sold out. And if you want to talk about my Diamond program, where I do 20 hours of one-on-one coaching with you, just click here to book a call. Silver, click here to purchase. It's $999 or $99 per month. Cancel anytime. And once you make all the payments, you get access to this forever, as well as every new elective that I give you. And then if you click on the very first lecture in the curriculum, it'll show you how to access the weekly Zoom call, which is a 1 hour call that starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time in 10 minutes. Yeah. So I'll have to wrap up this call soon. And if you guys have more questions that I can't answer, and there's tons more, I won't be able to answer them all. You can either ask me during that silver call, or what you can do is just save your questions and ask me next week. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't answer questions over email. I get 8 million emails. It's too hard. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Samuel. Hey, good to see you. Samuel wrote, "Hope you're keeping well." Thank you. I am. Thank you. Please, I would like to ask why the Steve Jobs inspirational video stopped playing at the end of your class. The video usually got me pumped up. I'll start playing it again. And actually, I have I bought the rights to it to be able to do it. I actually talked to the dude that made that documentary. Yeah, no, I license it on a yearly basis. I'll start playing it again. But what you can always do if you want to see that video, actually, give me 1 second. You can always go to my YouTube channel. I'll start next week then for you. I'll do that, I promise. Okay, so you go to, let me go to my website first. I'll show you how to access it. Then YouTube here. Okay. All right. And then you go just scroll down. You'll find it here somewhere. Or what we can do is just go to videos. And then you sort by popular. Oh wow, this passed the crypto course a years ago. It's a big deal for me. Yeah, and one of the writers of Billions reached out to me and had some nice comments on these videos. But here it is right here, life changing Steve Jobs. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm gonna wrap up this week's call. I know there's tons more questions. And if you have questions that I haven't answered, ask me in the silver MBA call. We're starting on Zoom in a couple of minutes. Or you can ask me next week. God bless you. Thank you all for the flowers, the many emails. If I haven't answered emails, I'm so sorry. I've received so many. But I love my students. I love you all. And thank you for the well wishes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to end with some breaking news, actually. Yeah, a news action. This is important. You guys got to check this out. And this will tell you a little bit more about my MBA program. But we got breaking news. I got to go to breaking news now. Thanks. All right, guys.
Hello, my name is Bob Burgundy from Haroun News Network, that's HNN, and I've got breaking news for you. It looks like technology behemoth Apple is trying to buy Nintendo. Breaking news, breaking news. I don't know if the deal will go through. I have to ask a number of our strategic advisors here to help us out to find out if this deal in fact will go through. And so the first strategic advisor that I want to ask is an expert in economics management and strategy. He works at a consulting firm called McKinsey, and his name is Chip Patterson. Chip, what are your thoughts? Yes, thank you, Bob, for that introduction. This is an extraordinary deal, and I think it might make sense, but I'm not really sure yet. And so, here at McKinsey & Company, we pride ourselves on advising the most incredible companies and government agencies in the world. And so, by the end of this MBA degree program, my fellow classmates here will help me to analyze if this extraordinary deal makes a lot of sense or not. Thank you, and cheerio. Thank you, Chip. The next expert we're going to ask is a finance and accounting expert who works at an investment bank called MHS, Morgan Haroun Sachs. His name is Gordon Lizard. Gordon, what are your thoughts on this deal? Thanks, Bob. I really appreciate it, So here at Morgan Haroun Sachs, MHS actually, we're going to do a really deep dive to understand the financial statements of, Nintendo and Apple. And I pride myself on being an amazing investment banker. And we're actually going to have a lot of my fellow students here during the Haroun Education Ventures MBA degree program help me to build out the financials. And don't worry, I know a lot of us don't understand how finance and accounting works, but we will by the end of this MBA degree program. In fact, here's what we're going to do, We're going to figure it all out together. We're going to create the financial model, meaning the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, etc., for Nintendo as well as for Apple. And it's a bit complicated because Nintendo's an international company, and so their financial statements are a little bit different from Apple, but we're going to figure it out, And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to value the company using discounted cash flow, as well as price earnings multiple, price to revenue, and other metrics as well. And so that by the end of this MBA degree program, we will know how much Apple should potentially pay for Nintendo. Thanks, Bob. Back to you. Thank you, Gordon. Our next expert is somebody that knows a lot about sales, marketing, and communication, and his name is Stephen Ive. Stephen, you work at Apple. What are your thoughts on this deal?
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. Thanks. It's going to be in
important for me to convince our board and shareholders to approve of the deal. And I'm not much of a presenter, but I know that a lot of my fellow students here in the Haroun Education Ventures MBA degree program are going to be able to help me to learn how to present much better in the SMC classes, that's sales, marketing, and communication classes, so that they'll give me advice, and together we'll be able to learn how to present to the board of Apple and the shareholders to convince them to the deal makes sense or if it doesn't. Thank you, Bob. Back to you.
Thank you, Stephen. Our next expert is an entrepreneurship expert named Tony Shark. Now, Tony was about to sign an exclusive contract with Apple for his virtual reality goggles and his company, Shark Virtual Reality. Tony, is this deal still going through for you, or because Nintendo has a great VR product, does Apple no longer need you, Tony? And what are you going to do about this?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. So I was supposed to sign this exclusive contract with Apple for my, Shark virtual reality goggles. I think our product is a lot better than Nintendo's. And in the entrepreneurship track of this MBA degree program, my fellow students and I are going to work on a way to sell this product to Apple. And so this product's amazing. There's a hardware component to it, which has low margins. And then there's a software component to it with media, which is where you stream it, and it's really high margins. We got a great product here, much better than anybody else in the market. And so, last thing I'll say, Bob, and thanks again for having me on your show, is that by the end of this MBA degree program, my fellow classmates and I will be armed with this, and we'll have what it takes to be able to succeed in business and take our careers to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Our next guest is somebody off the street here, a random person I just met whose goal is to work at Apple. I want to ask you, from a personal growth perspective, how do you think you can get a job at Apple? So this guy's name here is Joe Jobs. How are you going to get that job?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Bob. I really appreciate it. So my dream has always been to work at Apple, and I think I got what it takes. And I know that my fellow classmates and I in this Haroun Education Ventures MBA degree program, in the personal growth classes, we're going to learn just a ton so that we can all get the job of our dreams. We'll learn how to interview and all that stuff. But I'm looking forward to getting a lot of help from my fellow classmates so that we can get that dream job. I think I got what it takes. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Joe. Well, there you have it. We talked to 5 experts who are going to help us understand how this deal is structured, if this deal will go through and whatnot. And by the end of this Haroun Education Ventures MBA degree program, you will all be armed with enough skills to understand from 5 different perspectives whether or not this deal makes sense. And those 5 perspectives are as follows: economics management and strategy, sales, marketing and communication, entrepreneurship, personal growth, and finance and accounting. I'm Bob Burgundy signing out here from Haroun News Network's HNN.